Welcome back to the Digital Banking Symposium, co-organized by the Singapore FinTech Association and the Banking and Financial Services Union. Our next topic today is on growing a UX career in the financial sector and will be presented by Dr. Eric Schaffer. The UX field provides an amazing career opportunity. It involves creativity, systematic engineering, research, and leveraging a deep scientific understanding of people. It involves helping humanity integrate the blizzard of new technologies and changing lifestyles. This fascinating field lets you learn new things and develop stronger skills throughout your whole life. The financial sector has a very special requirement for UX practitioners. There are special imperatives and the stakes can be very high. The UX field works to protect customers from confusion, indecision, and tedium. It is a domain where we can leverage our field to add value in numerous channels and provide a clear competitive advantage. Dr. Eric Schaefer will define the value of UX in the BFSI space. Then he'll give his advice on how to understand the various pathways to join the field. He will share advice and warn about pitfalls. And we will outline a lifelong career opportunity that is aligned with the future of humanity. With over 40 years working in user experience design, training, mentoring, and managing thousands of UX professionals, Eric Schaefer will share why UX is central to digital transformation, why UX engineering is a key capability in the financial sector, how UX practitioners contribute to BFSI success, understanding the career ladder for UX designers, options for getting started and growing your skill set, why credentials matter, how you can select a great company to work for, it is worth more than money, and join the growing cadre of UX executives and the future of the UX field. Without further ado, I'd like to hand over my time to Dr. Eric Schaefer, please.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Eric Schaffer, and good morning to you. I've been in the field for 40 years, and I'll tell you something really interesting about it. You never run out of new things to learn, new areas to go into, and it's an amazing career. It's a career where you don't really have to worry that the robots are going to take over that work, because the level of creativity, of context, of empathy is not something you're going to see AI take over anytime soon. HFI, we provide training in Singapore, and we'll talk more about that. We also are a consultancy, and those two things come together, because when we give you training, we're giving you training based on our design experience across so many different banks, different insurance companies, and so we can talk from that. If you think about the human-centered design field, the customer experience, user experience field, you're hearing constantly about how important it is. Why is that? What's happened is there's a shift. It used to be that you'd use your computer a couple of times a day. It was no big deal. Today, we practically live online, right? We're talking together online right now. Used to be I would fly to Singapore again and again and again. Now, at this moment, we're doing it online. And if we're spending all our time online, and if we're being tortured by technology, then it's a terrible life. We need to make technology work with people, and we have the opportunity to craft the lifestyle of the future. And that is really what we're doing in the field. There's some data that's evolved over the last decade or so, and that data says that companies that are good at customer experience do better in the stock market than companies that are bad at it, than our average company. The CEOs of the world are all seeing this data, and universally they're going, yeah, we want to be good at customer experience. It's a strategic imperative. Unfortunately, they may not really understand what that means, what it takes to do that. And so it's important that you understand and that we communicate that. Part of what makes it difficult is you may hear a lot of different terms, all meaning basically the same thing. So human-centered design, building systems and software or devices that work well for people, means just taking this whole field as an engineering discipline and apply it to these different areas. But you get called an ergonomist, you get called a usability engineer, a UX. It's a bit of a confusing thing. I apologize, but just be aware that it's all human-centered design. So whether somebody's talking about interaction design or user experience design, for the moment, it's all human-centered design. Now, you'll hear people talk about customer experience and user experience. Customer experience is the whole thing. And those are people that look at what a retail shop looks like, what a bank branch looks like, what an ATM vestibule looks like, how a call center works, as well as looking at the software. The UX practitioners, right, the UX practitioners really work on the software. And the thing about it is that the UX work, the software work, is harder to do. The skill levels are higher. The demands in the market are higher. So you'll hear us talk about UX mostly at HFI because we're focusing on the software. If you can do that, you can mostly do the customer experience work as well, although there's specialized things about how you lay out a physical office and so on. Another thing I want to talk about in terms of language, you may have heard the term design thinking. I actually hate the term design thinking. And the reason I hate it is it makes it sound like, oh, all you have to do is think about it and then you can do design. That's not true. UX design is an engineering discipline. You won't do well if you try to just make it up, do it by common sense. I have empathy for customers. Nah, it's not going to work. So it's not just about thinking. When Stanford came up with design thinking, though, and it's a good thing to learn, but be aware that that's an innovation method. It is not a design method. It is a way of coming up with a new idea for a product or service, and that's fine, but you can't use design thinking to design a core banking system. You can't use core design thinking to design a mobile app. You have CX and UX design, that's where you do the actual design. And then customer journey mapping, usually if you have, say, an organization doing customer journey mapping, they're doing a flow chart of people's work, going through interacting with your company and seeing where it hurts. And those places you can make tactical improvements to. That's helpful. It's kind of part of the UX field. It's way easier to do than most other things. But you cannot use customer journey mapping as your core methodology to do CX UX design. I'll tell you the secret core of what we do. So if you're building, say, a banking system or an insurance system, and you sit down in the room and the first thing you talk about is, what is our technology? What is our middleware? Where are we going to host this? What is the core banking application we're going to use? If that's the conversation, you're doing technology-centered design, you're building a technology stack, and this is not a competitive way to build stuff today. What we wanted to do today is not start with what is the technology. We want to let the technology be led by what the human need is. We want to start with the customer experience stack. And the customer experience stack says, I need to understand my customer, not just one person. Usually it's a whole set of people with different roles, different characteristics. And I have to understand what motivates them, how I'm going to connect with them, how I'm going to reach out to them and have touch points. I'm going to show you these things. How do I design those touch points? Then once I have that, I can let those requirements drive the technology stack. So we want to shift organizations, and they are shifting, from technology-centered design to human-centered design, and human-centered design is about the technology stack. This is so critical that there's been a shift, right? And this is Nielsen Norman Group, good guys. And they've run sort of a whole series of studies that show that when you invest in UX, say 10%, you get tremendous results, right? 87% average increase in sales, traffic count, productivity, all these things go up. And they've been publishing this for a while, but there's a shift going on that's really interesting. That 10% number is no longer true. We no longer go, oh, I need about 10% of my development community doing UX work. 10% of the budget, 10% of the headcount. That's shifted. And it's shifted in an interesting way. So, yeah, IBM, right? You know IBM. They're not exactly cool. But in the last 5 years, they've shifted from having one UX designer to 72 software people to 1 to 8. Good grief. That's a huge difference. And that's something you're seeing in lots of different brands where they're going, we're going to have 1 to 8, even 1 to 5. So more and more UX people are being required by the industry. And that's very good in terms of the job market and our future. And that's happening because the demand for quality interface design, the demand for better human-centered design is going up because the bar is going up. Remember, we can't torture people with technology. And the software is getting easier. So we're using tools. We just go to GitHub, we pull down software. And so that means that we can really count on the UX field being strong into the next decades. It's a whole career. Okay, I'm going to kind of run you through some of these kinds of things. You can chat and share, and we'll select and answer some questions as time goes on. So let me talk a little bit about digital transformation. So everybody's talking about digital transformation these days, particularly in banking and insurance. And basically what it says is that we have a wave of new technology and we want to bring it in, but we want to bring it in ways that make a difference to customers. And it's scary that companies are not doing well, right? The estimates go like of 1.3 trillion spent on it last year, 90 billion went to waste. And people kind of understand why it's going to waste because it's not being done from the customer experience stack. It's being done because, hey, here's a cool new technology. And so our role in that space is to make sure that we're designing systems, next generation systems that use those technologies in a way that make a difference to people. And that doesn't happen, by the way, by like being emotionally or thinking about it. It's really a systematic design process. But what's happening is digital transformation says, you know, we used to have our GUIs, our webs, our mobile apps. Now all of a sudden, all the digital stuff, it's really cheap. It's accessible. So I can put devices in all sorts of places. We're connected in a new way, right? 5G coming out and so on. So very fast connections. I can augment memory and intellect, right? Artificial intelligence, big data. That's all supporting me. And then I have new kinds of interactions where I can have virtual reality. I can wear stuff. I have Internet of Things. Transhumans means that I've got stuff built into my body. You're actually a transhuman when 50% or more of your body weight is technology stuff. And people are starting to have, you know, implanted eyes and limbs and all sorts of stuff. So this is all changing. We're starting to be able to perceive the world differently. Facial recognition. We're being able to extend our capability. It's not just like a computer and I'm typing stuff. And the world is shifting too. So we're navigating this reality for our organizations. We're figuring out how it makes a difference. Some of it is just, I'm taking manual activities and I'm automating them. Yeah. But maybe more interesting is the idea that I'm going to figure out where these things make a difference. We call it function allocation in the field. And it often fails. It's like these little dash buttons that Amazon came up with. They don't make them anymore. It was a cool Internet of Things idea that just didn't work because they didn't understand the practicalities and what people would want. So we have to avoid just taking these cool digital transformation tools and playing with them. We have to understand systematically what it does for customers. So let me talk a little bit about the BFSI space. The UX work makes a difference. So this is HDFC, is an Indian bank, and we just built a mobile app, one of our early projects with them. And we redid their app, and this is a 72% increase in the number of transactions per month, financial transactions. That's huge when you have something this is a very widely used system. And the ratings are higher and we get awards. That's me in Chicago. And so being able to look at the business metrics around UX gives you a clue to what we bring to the table, right? It's not just, oh, it looks nice. It has a wow factor. No. It has a serious business implication. Now, here's another example. So this is an organization that does insurance and mutual funds. And we did the typical things UX people do, expert reviews and research. We looked at something called the Omnichannel Ux Strategy. I'm going to talk about that. And then we built standards for them. And the Net Promoter Score was good. People liked it. You may have heard of Net Promoter Score, NPS. It doesn't matter that much. Executives understand it easily, so that's good. But Net Promoter Score is not really the core thing we look at. A better metric was this one. People spent more time on the site. Now you might go, well, does that mean they're struggling? No, it means they're engaged. So time on the site in this context means more engagement. If I want to sell you life insurance, sell you a mutual fund, I want you spending more time on the site. So you can see like 145, 180% more engagement. It went from the worst in the industry to the best. People spent more time than even newspapers. So if you get people spending more time, you'll sell more. And that's the main thing. So you can look at this. The number of leads that they got per unique visit went up. Insurance, 179%, 89%. That's huge. So this is the kind of difference we make. We can also see people starting to do more online servicing. If it's easy to update your contact number, you don't call the call center. You can just do it online. So we saw a trend of that happening as well. Now, when you think about UX and what we do, a lot of the time you immediately think about retail customers. But it makes a difference in all the human-centered designs. So this is one that just came across my desk and I grabbed it. One of our staff was showing it to me. And we did a design program where we were looking at account origination. Big deal in the banking space, right? How long does it take for staff to set up an account? And it went from 47 screens in 3 different systems to 14 steps in one system. From an hour and 13 minutes on average to 16 minutes. So what we're doing there is saving staff time and avoiding customers sitting around being frustrated. All right. So our field, the UX field, it is core in digital transformation. It's core in the financial sector, right? We make a difference. Now, it's important that in our field, we don't just do UX. Okay, if you hear somebody go, yeah, come in, do UX, it means they don't understand. There's a bunch of different activities. There's a bunch of different kinds of projects we do, which makes it fun. Everything from strategies and innovation to testing to research to design and validation and continuous improvement, right? So there's a whole landscape of work that we do in our world, which is really fun. The most core thing that we have to worry about at the strategic level is, why will one person turn to their friend and go, you got to try that bank? What's the answer to that? Like, why is your bank special? Why is your insurance organization special? Why is your securities trading organization special? And my rule would be, it can't be based on a function. So if you're chasing functions, your competitors can code those functions almost overnight. So if you're differentiated based on functions, you're not really a viable organization. You also can't be differentiated based on deals. If you go, I'm going to give you a free toaster if you sign up, your competitor can offer a 6-slice toaster. So what makes me special as an organization? And there has to be kind of a core DNA about it. We had one organization that had a slogan that said, creating a wonderful world. And as we talked to the different executives, everybody had a different idea of what that really meant. We need to have a reason that we're special. The core of that is understanding the user's emotions. And so some of the more advanced work that the UX practitioners do is understanding the drives, blocks, beliefs, and feelings that customers have in, say, investing. When I understand this, I can design for what that connection is that's differentiated. It's not just a function. It's not a great deal. Those aren't viable. Now, let me give you an example. So this is ICICI Group, and this is public. I can share it with you. And they have a high net worth banking facility. And when we researched it, we found that high net worth investors are afraid. And that's good, right? So fear is powerful. People are basically driven by fear, food, sex, and survival of progeny. So fear is powerful, and they're afraid they're going to lose their money. The drive they have is to have individualized investments, which makes them feel like it's safer. I don't know if that's true, but it doesn't matter. But we created a frame that says investment solutions must be based on your needs, both explained and unexplained. And a slogan that says, we understand what drives you. So now we're going, this is what differentiates the organization. It isn't that they have, 20% off on new accounts. It's that there's a kind of connection. We can use advanced kind of techniques around it. And then everything's built around that. The idea that we're understanding who you are, you can do all kinds of things around that. So the first thing we want to do is understand what that special connection is. The second thing is we want to make things hang together. Omnichannel UX strategy. People ask me, like, why is Apple so valuable, so successful? You've used iTunes, right? It's not like the design is all that wonderful. But what they've managed to do is make everything hang together. So iTunes fits with the iPod, as for the tablets and the watch and the Genius Bar, and it all fits together. That's what they've done, which is making all their different touch points work together in a coherent way. So I want to have a special emotional connection, but I also want to have all these parts fit together. And in the banking space, you have a lot of different touch points, and they do different kinds of things well. You can't go, oh, mobile first. I'm just going to design a mobile app and then make it. No, I have to look at what's good about each of these kinds of areas. So ATMs do certain kinds of things well, and I have to decide when I want somebody to go to an ATM versus get an email. If I don't handle and think about this as a coherent whole, what happens is this. This is real. I didn't make this up. So this bank, which is in South Africa, offers internet banking. Cool. And it offers cell phone banking. Okay. It offers telephone banking, which is different than cell phone banking. How is that? And then they have speech bank. I mean, come on, that doesn't make any sense. Is somebody trying to be mean? Not really. What's happening is what they're trying to do is have individual groups working in silos and hoping it all comes together in some magic way. And it won't. There's no compatibility fairy that makes all that make sense. You have to do that at the beginning. You have to go, I have a customer and I'm understanding at that top level how they all connect. Making everything connect, and I don't have time to cover our most advanced classes or cover some of this kind of stuff, right? So how do we make it all connect in a deep way? One of the things we want to do is have something called a pervasive information architecture. So pervasive information architecture says, if your website says transact, invest, borrow, insure, and I go into the branch and I look at the brochures or I look at the desks, it should say transact, invest, borrow, insure, right? It shouldn't say teller. It should say transact. It shouldn't say savings. It should say invest. It should be in the same order. And so doing that is part of making that hang together in a good way. All right. So as a UX operation, you have to think about these high-level things. We also have to make each of those touch points easy to use. And the most important thing is we need to deal with the structural design. Okay. This is an example from the Singapore Health Promotion Board. And the Health Promotion Board spent a lot of money developing low-fat recipes. Nice. Where do you go to find low-fat recipes? Health A to Z, Resource Center. Actually, you need to go to HPBE Resources, Healthy Fun, and then Healthy Recipes. If the user can't find it, the function's not there. So we have to design things where people can understand what's there, can find them, and that's not so easy. And there's a kind of project called a user interface structure project that goes, what is the business trying to achieve? And let me understand my users. That user-centered analysis, that's the name of one of our classes, user-centered analysis gives me a foundation where I can then go and say, I'm going to design for them. I'm going to evaluate around who they are and what they do. I can go, here's a user and this is the page they're trying to use, and they want to know how much they owe and how they can pay for it. And I have to take this number, add it to this number, and pay your bill down here. That's not good. I want to know how much data I've used. That's all in one place, better. If I want to have upgrades, I have offers and I have stuff at the top. I have stuff, it's all over, right? And billing, it's at the top. It's at all the self-service stuff is spread all over. So this is not a good design. The structure is not good. I won't find things easily. So what I need to do is go, this is the way the content's structured, and that's the way the organization thinks about it. but the user's mental model is different. When we talk about the user's mental model, we're talking about the structure in people's heads about a domain. And it's often the case that there'll be a difference between the way that an organization sees the world and the way the customer sees the world. So if you're a bank and you think about a credit card, you think about it as a vehicle for providing credit. It's a credit vehicle, right? As a customer, it's probably a way I pay for stuff, and it's closer to a debit card. So once I understand the user's mental model, I build around that. I go, what do I owe and how can I pay for it? And I need that in one place. How much data have I used? I need that in one place, right? How many offers? Okay, there's my offers. And how do I manage my settings? And that's all in one place. So I'm organizing it around the user. It's human-centered design, right? And then I can go, this is the data in those things. And then I can say, what are the activities that I need to be able to do for each of those? And I can put those in, right? And then I graphically treat it, and I have a design which matches the way that people think. And this will be far better. And really 80% of the challenge of doing good, say, web design is getting the structural stuff right. And that's true for mobile too, right? It's really the same. And today we do responsive and all that. All right. Once I get that structure right, I need to design the screens. I'm going to tell you a secret. You may think you're designing a screen, but you're not. What you're designing is a cycle of information processing. What you put on the screen, and all you do is put stuff on the screen, implies the user's visual, intellectual memory, and motor activity. And the weird thing is none of those things work the way you think, right? You can't do this work based on common sense because you don't understand how you see. You see differently than you think. You remember things differently than the way you think you remember. You decide differently. You move differently. And so as a UX engineer, we have to understand how those things happen. Okay, you think I'm kidding, but it's true. So this is an eye tracker, and and see what you learn about this environment, right? So but I can see the person's eye moving around. We don't see like a camera does, snap. We see by moving our eyes around an area. And by watching that, I can see what the participant is doing, sometimes tell what they're thinking. In this case, I can tell the participant is probably a guy. And in reality, we don't do that many of these eye tracking studies as our normal design process because we know how it works. I know the eye is going to move, and I can design to optimize that eye movement. Okay, so look at these two ads. Which is better? The only difference is her eye, right? You're an executive. You're going like, which one do I want to use? Most people actually go, this top one is better. And they're wrong. Because I connect with her, but there's no visual fixation on the product. So how am I going to sell it? If I have her look over, then I'm more likely to sell the product. But you don't need to run that study because there's research that tells us that that's a thing, right? People are drawn to faces. And if the face is looking at text, they'll read the text or look at the thing. So as a UX practitioner, we know stuff like this. So when we design, we don't need to do a great big study with an eye tracker, even though they're relatively cheap these days. We can just go, yeah, I know what the research says. You can compromise like this if you need to. the way that visual information is processed is actually not at all like a camera. It's not like there's an image in it. So there are about 30 different areas of the brain that all do different stuff. Like you have one area of the brain that just does facial recognition. And it develops very early. It's a survival thing. So as a baby, we can smile at our mother and she won't eat us. And if I look at these faces, they don't look that odd, right? But when they're turned upside down, those faces are not going through the facial recognition center. But I'm going to turn them right side up. Right? It's the same image. I'm just flipping it. Exact same image. But look at how different it is. Look at this one. Right? We're extremely sensitive to nuances of facial structure when it goes through our facial recognition center. Anyway, I was just messing with you with that. The thing is that we have to know, like if you put your text in all capital letters, it'll cost 14 to 20% in reading speed. That's not because it's shouting. It's because the ascenders and descenders in the lowercase letters give each word a distinctive shape, which aids in recognition. If you have everything all caps, everything shaped like a rectangle, it's physically harder to read. Right? So you got to know that stuff, right? Interesting question. Like, what about visual design? We do a lot of work trying to make things look better visually. This is HFI design work. And the after design looks better. Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah. But is that important? We shouldn't overestimate it. And there's a tendency to do that for people who don't understand the field well. Just think for a minute about the world's most valuable internet properties. Right? So if you look at Facebook, is that beautiful? I mean, it's blue. I mean, Amazon is light blue, and then they ran out of blue pixels. I guess they couldn't afford them. I don't know. It's right. Fidelity is one of the better internet designs. It's just green. And yet Tom Tallis, who passed from COVID recently, but Tom Tallis spent decades improving this. And it's a wonderful design, not because it's pretty, but because it is, it's compelling in other ways. It's easy to use. The structure's good. It's fulfilling my needs. So we want to be able to make designs that look good in the banking space. These are HFI designs. But we don't want to hang up and go, that's the main thing. In fact, I would say there is a whole area, and sorry, this is a HFI term, PET, persuasion, emotion, and trust, of the emotions involved in designs. And the look of it is a little part of it, but it's only a small part of it. So when we do design, we have to make things usable. You're going to hear about the CUA training. The CUA training is mostly how do I make things usable? But I have to make them compelling also. I want to influence people to make decisions. And so that PET, and that's part of the CXA training. The CXA is the strategy, innovation, and persuasion mostly. And so user experience covers both those things. So as we get good in the field, we want to know that. Let me show you something weird. This is really recent. Tata Sky does Dish TV. And we did a redesign project, and I was actually involved in it personally. And if you look at it, it's not very different. Graphically, it's kind of the same look. It's not very different. And what we did was we took the process for signing up, and we went from 4 steps to 7 steps. And going from 4 steps to 7 steps, more steps to do it, increased conversion rate by 243%. What the hell? How can that be? I mean, think about the impact of your conversion rate going up 243%. What's going on? What's going on is we're using persuasion engineering methods that bring people in and get them involved. So I actually came up with this idea myself, and I was hearkening back and thinking about, I was the first UX guy working on Dell.com. And in Dell.com, back many years ago, you would go in and you would spend like half an hour, 45 minutes in the configurator setting up your computer. And by the time you spent half an hour configuring your computer, naturally you had to buy it. And so we're using that and another couple of methods here, compliance Laterals. So there's this whole emotional area. Banking folks love it when I talk about this stuff. So this is some research we did on the California lottery. And when you think about people playing the lottery, you might think, gosh, people have trouble with math. But that's not what's happening, right? It's not that people can't do the math. They don't expect to win. People playing the lottery, it's not about making an investment. It's about having fun. It's more like paying money for a roller coaster ride. And you can actually track the customer's journey through getting excited and seeing how much money is there and buying the ticket and taking it home and looking at it. And you can trace the emotions, right? I feel hopeful. I feel excited, right? I buy the ticket, hopeful, check the numbers, excited. Then I don't win, so I'm disappointed. And then I know, I've lost, I feel bad. Now I'm mistrustful. And then I start to feel, okay, maybe they're okay. And then I cycle like this, right? And if I go, I'm hopeful and I'm excited and my screen looks like this is not supporting that excitement. So we did a design where it looked more exciting and it sizzles. It's a game. Make it work and look like a game. And we even had a part where it was like, oh, you lost, and so you feel like a loser, which is really bad. And then we show you how much money of your losses go to education, and then you go, okay, I'm not a loser, I'm a philanthropist. So there's so many things you can do. I mean, this is a VR environment for doing small business banking. There's so much fun you can have in this field. It's really wonderful. Let me talk a little bit about this career. And it's a cool thing. You don't just like go and, take a course and then sit and do the same thing your whole life. There is a ladder that you climb up in your career. And that ladder starts with simpler things like doing a usability test or detailed design, user interface structure. This is the CUA stuff. And then the more advanced stuff, this is the CXA stuff. And you do that often in particular areas. So if you're in banking, you can become an expert doing this work in banking or medical or e-commerce or government. So it's a wonderful field because we get to get better and better decade after decade. How do you get into the field? I like people getting a university degree. So having a master's degree is a great way of being in the field. And so I'm very happy when I hear people saying, yeah, I'm getting a master's. Even a PhD is good, but a master's is the working degree. The only problem with a master's that I worry about is sometimes the master's program is teaching you what the head of the program is interested in and not what you need to do the work. I had one woman who I mentor and I met with her and she just finished her master's and I started asking her questions and it turned out she knows everything about the design of fonts. Well, designing fonts, like, what the shape of the characters are, is a thing. And her advisor was a world expert in it. But when you're doing system development in a banking environment, you are not going to spend much time picking fonts. It's probably already picked for you. And even if so, you're just picking it. It's not a big deal. So university degree, love that. There are courses that give you a solid foundation. The HFI courses are like that say, there's a set of things that we want you to know in order to do this work. So the courses are like that. The certification exam is about that. They're things that you kind of need to know to be effective. Okay? There's some other programs that say, come on in, we're going to design some stuff together. We're going to do like a hackathon. Okay, let's get together and design. This is not good until you have your foundation. If you have a solid foundation, university degree, one of the foundation courses, then you can go to a hackathon or a workshop and design stuff and learn and get better and better. But you can't piece that together from going to those in a good way. And then there are programs on forever. There are courses that are specialized courses just in voice or something like that. And there are courses, conventions you can go to. And so that's good too. But that should, again, be done on the top of a foundation. So, so the HFI courses, the courses that are the can-do stuff, right, are the CUA courses. And that's what you do to get started in the field. And with that, you can work in the field. And then as you get more advanced, the CXA courses are very cool, persuasion and all of that. And you'll see, by the way, if you look and do a scan through job postings, many organizations ask for a CUA or a CXA. And what they're doing when they have job postings that ask for that is they're saying, please, we'd like you to have that certification. It's a good thing. Okay, credentials. Why? I developed that CUA. Company put it together some time ago. And that's because we knew this would happen. This is a great field. It's an exploding field. And so go on YouTube and you can get like a 12-minute video on how to lie about being a UX practitioner in a job interview. Right? And the comments are like, that man is a blessing from God. Thank you. This is vital. That's not the way. You deserve better. You should have a gold standard of training supporting what you do, not just faking it. And we see it again, how to land a career in UX design with 0 qualifications. And so that's just not real. It's an engineering practice. And there's so many of these like crash courses you can just go in. This is not good for your career. It really isn't. You want real stuff. I saw this one recently. Anyone interested to learn a UI UX designing course for free? If they can't even make a single sentence, you're probably not wanting to train with them. In fact, what we've ended up doing is we have tests that we sell to companies that let them go, do you really know what you're doing? So you'll get found out in many cases if you do that. This is an interesting thing that I've seen also happen. And I actually like this. Right? This is August 2020. So people that are properly trained, that understand the field, when they go into a company and that company doesn't know what they're doing, they're walking. They're going like, I'm not going to work here. And I would say that when you get your first jobs, getting in an organization that knows what they're doing is important. So being able to pick an organization that has a real practice, and that means having methods and standards and tools and looking at training and certification, having the right org structures, executive championship, all those things. You want to be able to have that. Look for an organization that has an organized practice with senior people that you can learn from. And particularly when you're first starting in the field, that's so important. And, you can look at an organization and go, this is an example where, the executives are talking about UX and they're all excited about it, but they're not really putting any money into it, and it's not under systematic control. And yeah, they have some staff, but the methods are, so if you see an organization that's not very far along, it's better if you can get to one that's mature. Okay. Last thing, and then I'll take any last questions, and Issa will talk a little bit. But we're talking here about doing UX work. There's a growth path as you go forward that's about being an executive. And some of you may want to do that. It's a little different. It's not about I'm designing something amazing. It's about I'm building a practice. And so there are many roles in central operations, UX directors, for example. And the UX director job is more about communicating about UX, building the organization, than I'm designing cool stuff. And this is amazing. So there's starting to be a set of human-centered, focused, C-level staff that you'll see the names CCO, Chief Customer Officer, Chief Design Officer, Chief User Experience Officer. And that's a growing set of very top-level people focused on the customer. And at Walmart, and this just came out in April, Walmart's CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, reports to the Chief Customer Officer. And it makes sense because if you think about it, the marketing is just part of the customer experience and it should fit with everything else. And so this field allows you to grow up that ladder we talked about, and it allows you to grow into the executive space and build bigger and bigger organizations and make a difference that way as well. So our field is so cool. It's a wonderful field. You can learn forever. And that field is part of making technology work for people and make technology allow us to adapt to what's going on right now with things like the pandemic and to things like climate change, where we're faced with so many demands and the need to adapt. And people in our field are going to help make that happen, figure out how to use that digital technology. Okay, so Issa, I'll turn it over to you. I'll take questions, and I'll wrap up and see what people have in mind.
Okay, thanks to Dr. Eric Schaefer for that very, very interesting presentation. I think one of the bad things of doing things virtually is that even when you have such a captivating and interesting presentation, you can't hear the round of applause. But I think that was really awesome. And yeah, so let me get to the sharing for the course itself. Okay, so a lot of you would then think, okay, NTUC Learning Hub is involved, and we do want to learn more about UX that Dr. Eric Schaefer has shared. So specifically, there are two courses that you heard about just now. There was the Certified Usability Analyst, which is things to do with making things usable, increasing usability, making things easy to use. And that is the course that will lead to the exam that you can take. The exam is bundled into the course fee, and then you can take the exam and get the CUA certification. So what we wanted to do in NTUC Learning Hub is to make this accessible to our professionals in Singapore. So our move is that we want to make sure that our UX practitioner or people who are interested in UX in Singapore will be able to get the CUA certification in in an accessible manner. And because of that, with the support from IBF funding, which has been extremely generous, especially during this COVID period, we are able to do just that. So you can have a look at this slide. Look at the right-hand side. I don't think we have a lot of time to look at the left-hand side and everything there, but okay. The course fee for individuals will be $481.50. The full course fee is 4.5K because this is a globally renowned certification. The trainers are excellent and you'll be learning, like what Dr. Eric has said, industry relevant content. So you'll you'll have to pay 10% of the full cost fee after GST, which is $481.50. For corporates, if you're a company, you want to send your staff for a CUA course, you'll get the same 10%, but it excludes GST. Okay. So this 90% funding is applicable from 1st January to 31st December 2021. And you have to hit certain criteria. You can find it in our website later on as well. Okay, one thing to note is that if you are interested, what is very important now for you to do is to go to our website and inquire for it. The reason is that we are selling out this. We are maxing out all our classes as soon as we open them. So in December, everything is, as we open it up, everything was filled up. So we are opening a set of classes in January based on the trainer's availability for these HFI courses. And in order for you to make sure you get a spot in these courses, certainly do send us an inquire now form. Okay. So maybe I can ask Dr. Eric Schaefer a couple of questions. We certainly do not have time to ask everything. The first question is, do I need to have an art or design background to be a good UX designer?
Interesting question. So the answer is no, right? So there are people who have a visual design background or a visual design orientation, and they can learn to augment that in the UX space. But there are other people like myself, you do not want to see me draw anything, but who are much more oriented to the more analytic part of it. They're people that just do research. They're people that specialize in things like cross-cultural design. So whatever your DNA is, you can adapt it and find an expression in the field.
Okay, terrific. So another question, which is more for a small company, and in Singapore, a lot of our GDP is in SMEs, small and medium enterprises. So the question is, at what stage should a small company engage a UX designer?
When you start thinking about a product and service. Not when you're designing it, but when you're thinking about it. Because what we do is we prevent you building something that's a cool, great idea that we have the technology for that doesn't really work for customers. Right? So your core job in the UX field is starting by going, what is that? What is special about it? Why is it good? And then there's an entire path of building it, structuring it, designing it, testing it, improving it. And it's important as a small company to know your customer experience activity never goes away. So get somebody good at the beginning and keep them there and involved and promoted and building up a strong capability.
Okay. I think that's all the time that we have for today. We certainly have a lot more questions, but
I'm missing that. Okay.
Okay, so thank you very much, Dr. Eric Schaefer, for doing this talk for us.
All right, wish us the best in our election. All right, take
Thank you, Dr. Eric Schaefer, for that presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, our live streamed agenda will be taking a short lunch break. However, if you are here for either our FinTech or Banking Employer Networking sessions, please do head over to the networking section of the site where we will be commencing shortly at 12 p.m. Our next agenda will be streaming shortly at 2 p.m, where we will be discussing the topic of enabling the new age digital bank with emerging technologies. Ms. Tan Bin Ru, CEO, Southeast Asia, One Connect Financial Technology and co-chairperson, Blockchain Association Singapore, will be using case studies of successful implementations to find out with us what it takes to build a new age digital bank with emerging technologies. I will see you shortly at 2 p.m.